in sitcoms, the dad is always the kind of the butt of the joke, and I've done I've done that in Malibu Dan the Family Man, ironically, because it's funny to laugh at the dad, and you can kind of get away with that. And I don't know, at what point in time that kind of became the strong fathers are very there. You don't see it a lot in cinema until the end of the wrap up of the movie. Hopefully they come around and they've learned their lesson and whatever. So um, yeah, I mean we're actually trying to change that. We're doing a movie based on a best selling book by Meg Meeker called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. And it talks about just the ways that you can instill that just the teaching in your kids and how important that is with that time spent with them.
What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec Lace. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is actor, screenwriter, and producer David A.R. White. David is well known for the smash hit movie God's Not Dead, as well as its sequels. It's an honor to have him on the podcast today. Get down there, smack the subscribe button, tap that like, and let's jump into it right now with David A.R. White on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father David A.R. White. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, let's kick it off like this here. How many kids do you have? How old are they?
I think I have three. I might have more. No, I have two daughters that are 8 and 11, and my son is 14.
Very cool. What kind of sports or activities are they all into?
My son actually is in Kenny Smith's basketball club, which is really cool. Aim high. And then and my daughters are into dance, and then they've also acted in some of our movies as well.
Very cool. David, if you could just take a minute here to hit my listeners a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Dodge City, Kansas, and I moved to Los Angeles when I was 19. I was on that hit television show with Burt Reynolds called Evening Shade for 4 years. And then I went into producing in my late 20s. There was really no faith-based labels or even genres at the time, and just started that process. Did our first feature in '99, and then created Pure Flix in 2005 with my partners, and then in 2015 we did the SVOD, pureflix.com, and actually last year we just partnered with Sony on that. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. And then our big movie was called God's Not Dead, which that kind of set us up for in 2014, and it became the #1 independent live action movie of that year, and went on to gross. It's like the 6th most profitable movie in cinema history based on its ROI. So that was our breakthrough finally.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I'm going to get back to that faith-based stuff in just a second here, but I wanted to ask you about how old were you then, David, when you first became a father, and how did becoming a dad kind of change your perspective on life?
Yeah, 36 was my first child. So, I think I don't know. I'd like to say that people don't really know what they're getting themselves into, and the idea of it, seems really daunting before you actually have kids, and you never know exactly how in the world you're going to sort it all out, but you really do. You rise to the occasion, and in the process, you learn to love your children more and more, and they're the most special things in your life.
Yeah, very well said. And then getting right there, what you said about faith-based movies. I talk on my show all the time about the fatherless crisis that we have going on in our country. We got so many kids are growing up without a father or a father figure in their life, and it's having a devastating effect on our society. And you combine that with the fact that God has been removed from so much of our society. I think if we piece those two things together, strengthen the family units and bring God back into focus, I think the majority of the issues we're seeing would start to evaporate quickly here.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Spending time with your kids is I think just so key, and also the people that they hang out with that you get to know through whether the drop off pickups, like all the car time you get to spend with them. You never get that time back. Once it's gone, and it goes quick. So enjoy it if you have the opportunity to, no doubt.
Yeah, I think a big part of that too, David, is a lot of the culture that we see. A lot of times we see a dad portrayed on TV or in a movie. If he's a dad, he's always got his head down. He's never getting laid. He's never having any fun. And the single guy is always sleeping around, having adventures, and it always makes it look as if like that's what you should aspire to be. And it kind of looks down a little bit on the fatherhood role. That's why I love the fact that you have these family focus based movies. I think our culture needs so much more of that.
Yeah, no, thank you. It is kind of funny how, in sitcoms, the dad is always the kind of the butt of the joke, and I've done, I've done that in Malibu Dan, the Family Man, ironically, because it's funny to laugh at the dad, and you can kind of get away with that. And I don't know, at what point in time that kind of became the strong fathers are very there. You don't see it a lot in cinema until the end of the wrap up of the movie. Hopefully they come around and they've learned their lesson and whatever. So um yeah, I mean, we're actually trying to change that. We're doing a movie based on a best-selling book by Meg Meeker called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. And it talks about just the ways that you can, instill that just the teaching in your kids and how important that is with that time spent with them.
Yeah, very cool. And on that, David, what are the top values that you hope to instill in your kids growing up?
I mean, first, I think it's always, it's their faith, their personal faith with God, faith, and then family, how important that time is as a family to, whatever. I mean, whether you're divorced, whether you're still married, or whatever you're going through, just still spend that time together. And with that, create some amazing memories. And then from there, their interests, school, obviously. I think school has to fall in between there. Do that first, third, and then their interests after that.
Yeah, very cool. And then how about as far as discipline goes here, David? What type of disciplinarian are you as a dad? And is that different than the discipline style that you grew up with?
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, I grew up in the '70s, and so, the disciplinary, my dad used to have a belt and would take it out whenever he needed to, and I mean, you lined up and you knew the strength of your father and I think that has been lost. This idea that spanking your children is, I'm sorry to say it, I know that's politically incorrect, but is obviously you don't raise your hand to your kid, and that's such a, what, I'll just avoid that whole process. But I think it's important that their kids know that from the father down is the rules of the house, and they have to obey those things, and if they don't, then they get their media taken away, or in different steps to discipline them. And I'm thankful that my kids are not perfect by any means, but I think by constantly doing that and instilling that in them, they learn to do chores, and chore money is so important too. By paying them something every week, they're earning something, and they're actually getting, money, and then they have an idea, and then so you go to the store, they don't buy whatever they want to buy. They have to actually like earn it and do it that way. And that's really hard in our society because it's at times as parents we're exhausted and we just want to go, whatever you want, just take it, just stop crying, do whatever. But I think that's so important is chores, and even getting and chore money for working.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. And I agree with you there. I was one of the kids that grew up with like just wait till your father gets home, and it was always that threat. Like you were like, oh man, I really messed up now. And I think there's obviously a big difference, David, between beating a child and
Yeah,
spanking a child. And I know
100%.
it's gotten so blown, and people are even afraid to talk about it. And I think like when you said the chores and teaching the kids to create value is something that's important. But we have this every kid gets a trophy philosophy that has been a colossal failure in our culture. And when you combine that with no discipline from the father or not having a father figure in your life, now you got kids out there running, breaking windows, rioting, doing all this stuff, and they feel like there's no consequence for anything. And then they feel as if they're entitled to stuff because they've been given everything in their life. And I think we're doing them a disservice by
The
doing all
service.
this.
Yeah. No, and I mean, and that's another thing that I think sports are so good for them is because they go to a practice when they don't want to go to a practice at times. Sometimes, obviously, my son loves to go to practice, and then other times he really doesn't want to go. He wants to veg out, after a long day at school and everything else is going through. But the importance of those practices, my daughters are in soccer, and is just to get them to learn structure, and then also to give it their all. And no matter what happens, whether or not you win or lose, I know this is another tricky thing, is that you just do your best. And I think at the end of the day, do your best, but give it your all.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then you have right now the Finding Love in Quarantine. I know that that's going on right now. What's the takeaway from that? What was the genesis of that, and what's been the reaction so far from it?
Yeah, Finding Love in Quarantine. I mean, we started shooting this last April. So, right in the middle of the pandemic, right in the middle of chaos and not knowing what in the world was going on, my business partner had said, listen, why don't you guys, and the director, Matt Shapira, came and said, let's make a movie. I mean, the only thing I could do was do it from my house with my daughter. And so we started this idea out, and it's one of the things I think that the pandemic really did well for us is the time that you didn't spend with your children. Like, it caused people to stay home, and it caused, to all of a sudden you were, in the movie, obviously he's on, he's grounded from his flights. He can't travel. He was always traveling. So now here he is home with his daughter and trying to sort that through. Then of course with homeschooling and that whole thing, Zoom school. And in the process of it, he starts to date, and Eva LaRue comes in, and they meet online, and he does this blog that he doesn't really know what to say, and he just takes that first step forward because he needs a job, and this is his outlet to doing that. And in the process, he meets Eva LaRue's character, and he finds love in quarantine, and and it wraps itself up really nice. So Tom Arnold's in that too. It's a funny movie with Stacey Dash, a whole bunch of people that ended up coming, but the genesis of it, how we started, was weird because we shot like 2 days every week. And then it kept going until finally we were able to just go outside and go get other characters.
Yeah, and I do hear that a lot, David, about a recurring theme about how families have been able to spend a lot more time. It's been that silver lining through the pandemic that we kind of got a chance to reevaluate what our priorities are, and we got to spend a lot more time. So hopefully that helps to strengthen so many families in the country. And I know right now a big thing, obviously, is the cancel culture that we're seeing. And I know you had the movie Unplanned. I had Alexander Kane. I had him on the podcast here when that came out. So how has that been for you? Have you faced any of this and difficulty in getting the movies out there? Do you get any of that backlash? Is this a real thing that's going on? What's been your experience with this?
Yeah, I mean, Pure Flix, we've distributed theatricals, and Unplanned was one of those. We didn't make that film, but we were, behind the message to it. We put out Hillary's America. We put out, Dinesh D'Souza's last one. I mean, from the God's Not Dead movies all the way through. So there's a whole lot of different type of films, and then you have the family films. Fortunately for us, years and years ago, I had that dream to me and my business partners to start a distribution company, because the problem was is studios were blocking this kind of content from coming in, and they didn't want it, they didn't understand it. And what happened is in the early 2000s, as we started putting this stuff out, and then we took that power back basically to distribute these, it allowed us the freedom to not have to go through a studio system on what you could and you couldn't make. And obviously they're corporate owned, so they have their own dilemmas going on, and it just allowed us freedom. And so fortunately for us, we've been able to be pretty free in putting material out. Now the studios all have faith divisions, ironically, is they realize that, wow, there's 150 million people that go to church once a week, or did before the pandemic, and there's a whole market for that, and we should get into it. And so that's been really exciting to see how the faith-based community and even the market has grown, and the studios now, corporately owned or not, they're trying to work within, trying to serve that audience as well.
Yeah, I definitely think our country needs it so much more now than ever. So props to you for what you're doing and the message that you're bringing. You mentioned Dinesh D'Souza. I had him on the podcast here as well. And I know that I usually get that blowback whenever I have guys that are right leaning or have conservative views, I always get hammered on social media, and it always seems to go one way. And it's unfortunate that it is that way, but there is a large market, like you said, of people that are interested in the content. So it's a shame that they try to, just promote one view and knock the other one down. And I think it has to do, like I said, it all goes back to the family for me. I really think that if we could just strengthen up our family units here, I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I think just as a dad, as a family man, we all want the same things. We're all so much more alike than we are different.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Is like faith. What does faith play in people's? It's different in everybody's world. It's there, but ultimately, I think it's the connection of humanity, and how in the world do we connect with each other? And Christ's teaching was all about love. Love your neighbor as yourself. Well, if we could just love each other and stop yelling at each other and listen to each other, we could get a lot more done. We wouldn't have this massive clash going on at all times. It's my way or the highway. Like we need to come together, and we need to, work together.
Yeah, and it rings true because I've had dads here of all faiths, Muslim dads, Jewish dads, Christian dads, and they all have that same values that they're hoping to instill in their kids. So like I say, it connects us. We're all much more alike than we are different. So David, what kind of projects are you working on here that are coming up? What could we be looking forward to that you guys are pumping out soon?
Yeah, we have a couple of them. We are just finishing. I'm actually going to DC next week to finish the latest installment in the God's Not Dead movie. And so that comes out in theaters in October.
That's the fourth one then, right?
Yeah, it's called God's Not Dead, We the People. And it's like, I don't know if you remember that great Jimmy Stewart movie called Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Of course, yeah.
But it's basically it's off of that. And so we have that coming out, and then in January we release the best-selling faith-based women's book of all time, Redeeming Love. And that's a big movie that was DJ Caruso, who did the Triple X movies and Disturbia and Eagle Eye and all these other ones. Really, his wife and him loved this book, and they came in and we made a pretty big movie that Universal's releasing with us. So, yeah, we're always busy.
Awesome. Good stuff. Looking forward to it, David. Last thing I want to hit you with here, I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
That's great. I'd say give yourself a break. It's going to be hard at the beginning when you're not getting any sleep, and you're going to be frustrated, and and at times you're going to be like, why in the world did I do this? But that human being, your son or your daughter, will become the most important person in your life, and they will be your friends and your family members till you pass into the next realm of existence. And so give yourself a break and just go with it, and you're not always going to be perfect, and it's okay.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, David A.R. White, you're a first-class father all the way. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
Thanks, brother. God bless you, man.